Board of Selectmen's meeting to order. If everyone could please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance and moment of silence. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I would like to do tonight's moment of silence in honor of Peter Beecham, who passed away this past weekend. It's his list of accomplishments and what he did for the town is really too great to even start into at this moment. But I think to say that he made all of us want to be a better Rockporter, and he made Rockport a better place to live for all of us. It's kind of the best way to put it, and I know
Well
there's
said.
a service for him on Friday, but thank you to Peter for everything he did for all of us. Thank you.
Turn your mics on.
Oh, we're sharing. Oh, no, here's mine.
There we go.
Okey doke. First on the agenda this evening, we have a public comment period. Toby?
Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. I see on the agenda you have the Rockport Music Benefit in Millbrook Meadow. I believe you had one last year. I'd like to know how much we got, the town got, for hosting that event at the Meadow. I've said before that I think that we should be getting money for any outfit that is using a public property to make money. If it were all open to the public, a gift, that would be another matter. So I'd like to know how much we're getting, and I think you need a schedule of fees for events, and the town should be getting money every time someone is making money using a public place.
Sure. Want me to answer?
Yes, please.
Sure. The town, as far as I know, didn't receive payment for that. I believe it was 2 years ago. I think last year they couldn't hold the event there because the Meadow was under construction. And I believe we had this exact same discussion 2 years ago.
Indeed.
And this board just kind of disagreed with you in that we felt that Rockport Music, what they give to the town and the youth is so much greater than the cost of using the Meadow for a few hours. And we made sure that the rest of the Meadow was open to the public, that people could cross through and didn't feel like it was closed, which I know they did. So
We disagree. But a second subject, and that is when you were drawing up your list of issues to discuss with the honorables who were to be here tonight, I see one is, I suggested that you ought to be asking about the special ed expenses, an unfunded mandate. And your response was that it was over your heads. And indeed it is. It's not in the sense that it's not in your control. And that would be the whole point of taking it up with the honorables. It's not in their control either, although they get votes. But they would have perhaps a handle on it when we don't. You decided instead that you would ask for a change in the funding for the choice students. It's a reasonable thing to ask, and it's been unchanged from 5,000, I think 5,300 for umpteen years, and the cost of a kid in the schools is something like 15,000. So a reasonable concern, but you have to remember that the honorables also represent Gloucester with 4 or perhaps 5 times as many votes. So it seems to me unlikely that they would be shooting themselves in the foot to favor our town at the expense of Gloucester. And I think you make a major mistake of simply ignoring the issue of the special ed expenses, which are...
that's on our list as well.
Oh, it is?
It is.
Well, when I asked before, you dismissed it. Thank you.
Toby, I think that's like the third meeting in a row where we've agreed on some things. Anyone else for public comment? No? Okay. Next we have Representative Ferrante is already here. You must drive quicker than Senator Tarr. And he is on his way and will
But
be here
legally.
shortly, but legally. Next, we have an entertainment license hearing for the Yankee Clipper Inn. Is there a motion to start the hearing?
I move that the Board of Selectmen open a public hearing on the application of Yankee Clipper Inn for an entertainment license to follow outdoor music on premises and outdoor PA system.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of opening the hearing?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Good evening. If you don't mind just introducing yourself for the record.
I'm Mike Barnhart. I'm the general manager of the Yankee Clipper Inn, in my 8th season here with the property.
Great. Hi, Mike. Nice to see you, as always.
Good to see you as well.
Selectman Campbell just reminded me, I just have to read the notice that was in the newspaper.
Certainly.
Town of Rockport Board of Selectmen, public hearing, Tuesday, March 26th, 2019, Conference Room A, Town Office Building, 6:05 PM, Yankee Clipper Inn, YC Management, Inc., 127 Granite Street for an entertainment license for outdoor music on premises and outdoor PA system for 2019. Signed, Sarah J. Wilkinson, chairperson. It was posted in the Gloucester Times on March 21st, 2019. Thank you. Great. Do you mind just going over again what you're applying for this year?
I'm applying for the yearly entertainment license. I think this is either the second or third year that I've come before the selectmen for this. I filled out the license, it's been, about 5 months ago, so I don't even have a copy in front of me, but I believe I was asking for up to a 4-piece band. Nothing that I didn't ask for last year, up to a 4-piece band if used. And then also I have a karaoke machine that we use, frankly, if there's a Justice of the Peace out there at our arbor for the ceremony itself.
And a disc jockey.
Yeah, I haven't. Normally, it's part of the 4-piece band.
Oh,
to be
okay.
quite honest with you, so
Okay.
I've never had more than 4 pieces for any event. I did have one last year in September, and the whole event was, for the most part, indoors. I had come before you 2 years ago, I believe, as far as the liquor license, and we had to do some rewriting of it and extend a rope out to close off the property for that, and we have adhered to that and done that as well.
Great. And I don't believe we have heard of any issues related to that since then? Nope.
I have not either.
Great, great.
Are the hours the same this year, Mike, as last year?
So
So you're asking for 12 PM to 10 PM?
I thought I said 9, but maybe I spread it out to 10. I don't conduct any events that go past 9. Otherwise, they go indoors because I
Okay.
don't want to violate the noise
Right,
statute.
right, okay.
Great. So maybe we can just make sure the license says 9? Okay, any other comments at this point?
No, I don't. We had about 5 or 6 events last year. We're on pace to do about the same this year, and I don't anticipate any issues.
Great. And this is a public hearing, so at this point, is there anyone in the public who would like to ask a question or make any comments? No? Come on, no? This is so different from some of our other ones. Okay, great. Any questions or comments from the board?
None.
No, it's all the same.
Oh, yeah,
I
it's
live
your
nearby,
neighborhood.
and I've never heard any music from this. It's very quiet, well contained, I'm sure. 'Cause I've
That's
never
great.
heard any.
We don't have a lot of room with the rooms on top of the wedding site, so I require rooms be occupied to be able to have an event, because it's just not and we only have that one parking lot across the street for additional
Right.
guests, so we just can't take a large volume.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I know it was 2 years ago that some neighbors came just concerned with when you put the rope.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
they were
ye-
so receptive to that, it seemed like not an
Yeah.
issue at all. So, great. Okay. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
There is. I move that the selectmen close the public hearing.
Any further comment?
Seconded.
Motion has been made and seconded. Further comment? Okay. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Great. And now is there a motion for the license?
There is. I move that the Board of Selectmen approve an entertainment license for the Yankee Clipper Inn of 127 Granite Street to allow outdoor music on premises and outdoor PA system to expire on December 31st, 2019.
Second?
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed,
Aye.
nay. Motion carries. Great. When are you guys opening for the season?
We are open year-round.
Oh,
So
great.
actually, I had a very small event in February, but completely indoor. Nobody's going to want to be outdoor in this weather. So I had a wedding for 18 people, and as I said, nice event, but
Great.
we've got a few more on the agenda, and hopefully a few more coming still for this year.
Great. Well, best of luck. I hope you
Thanks,
have a
Mike.
Thank
nice
you very
busy
much.
summer. Thanks.
Good
Nice
seeing
to-
everybody.
Nice to see you as
Good to
always.
see you.
Great. So we are waiting, so, Representative Fronte, would you like to get started, or you want to wait? What do you think? Want to get started? Sure. Do you want to join us at the table? Thank you so much for coming, as always. Just have to make sure your microphone is green. Yep.
They are, yep. Good, how are you?
So these are some materials for you that.
Thank
will
you.
walk through. Senator may have some.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ann.
Is this a test?
It is, you're gonna all be quizzed on.
Have it
that.
memorized by the end of the meeting?
Thank you.
And I believe that Mitch sent just kind of the list of items that we had kind of come up with to touch on to your office at the
Yeah.
end of last week. And then I know we'd also just love to get an update from you and then Senator Tar as well.
Sure,
Great.
absolutely. Now, do I have to push something?
Nope,
in?
you're all set.
I'm all set.
Green.
Okay.
Maybe move it closer, a little bit.
Ah,
Yeah.
there you go.
Like an ice cream.
Right here?
Yep.
Okay, good. So just a general update. It's March. We're about to go into our budget period. My new position in the House of Representatives is as the Chair of Economic Development. For anybody who's familiar with the State House or the hierarchy of committees, there's the Chair of Ways and Means, and then below the Chair of Ways and Means is Economic Development, Education, and probably Healthcare Financing. And as you can imagine, those three overlap, and then most of the committees underneath overlap as well. So in addition to economic development, what you would think of as job creation, there's a part of the economy that's consistent with healthcare financing, so we overlap into that category. We overlap into the education, as I just mentioned. We overlap into workforce development. We overlap into housing. We overlap into consumer protection, small business, and community development. And so, as you can imagine, there's probably about 75% of the issues at the State House that, in legislation that will now touch our committee. And so our committee will be responsible for developing with the Baker administration a plan for going forward with the Commonwealth in terms of economic development. So the nice part of my position for all of you that are here tonight and for all of our constituents on Cape Ann is Cape Ann will have the loudest voice on economic development. So this is the time and the place where I would encourage any of the economic development committees or city planners or what have you. They're interested in economic development in the region to talk to us about that. I know from having met with constituents in this area that affordable housing and meeting with some of the folks on the planning board, that affordable housing is also a big issue. Part of that will come under our economic development plan, as well as the bill that will, not this year, we do it in the second year of our term. We do an economic development bill that starts to implement the plan. So much like you would do a plan here, and a comprehensive plan here in Rockport, and then hope to fund the items on that plan, we take the same approach on the state level. So we've met with the Secretary of Economic Development, Mike Keneally, from the Baker administration. We meet with him almost regularly on some of these themes and ideas and how to move forward with them. In addition to that, last term, I served as a member of the Speaker's leadership team. And what that means is there's about 10 members of leadership and 4 chairs that meet, 4 chair people who meet with the Speaker once a week. And we help to develop House policy. And so again, if it's important to you, it's important to me. The good news again is the district has a seat at those meetings with the Speaker. So 1 out of 15 of those seats is held by somebody from Cape Ann. Mitch has been, I want to let you know that Mitch has been outstanding in terms of communicating with our office. So you're always welcome to contact me directly. However, as a group, one thing that the senator will echo when he comes here is one thing that we ask, and we do ask this of all of our, the city council in Gloucester as well as the boards of selectmen in this town and in Essex, is that when a request is made, that it have the support of the Board of Selectmen. So what we don't want to be is the arbitrator of any of the boards of selectmen. And to pick, one person's idea over another or what have you. So we ask that, Mitch is the best conduit for official business. Certainly, like I said, you should all have my cell phone number. Feel free to use it whenever. I encourage that amongst all the elected representatives. But certainly, if there's a request of the community, it's always best if it comes through one point person, arguably the town administrator. And so I give you that as an introduction to an overview. In addition to that, if you are an avid fan of reading the Boston Globe or the Herald, you probably know that.
Globe.
The Globe, okay.
I had that.
You probably know that one of the big pieces of legislation that we'll take up, it will seem as though it's the only bill that the Economic Development Committee is taking up, but it won't be. But that's sports betting and whether or not the lottery goes online. And there's reasons why we would want to do that. There's reasons why we want to be really cautious in doing that. But, for the most part, those are avenues that the state would have to enter in a short period of time in order to be competitive with states around us. Rhode Island already has a bill that's passed. I don't think their bill is a very good one. I still think that there's room for Massachusetts to enter and to take up space in that. But if you were to look at online lottery within a 5-year period, states have gone from an increase of about $20 million to about $120 million. And from being selectmen, how those monies come back to cities and towns and how that's used to offset city and town expense. Something similar, we're now seeing gaming revenues come back. We're going to start to see marijuana revenues coming back. And so the reason it's important to look at these revenues, as we all know, is the economic forecast right now for the Commonwealth is a potential recession in the next 12 to 18 months. And so we've been depositing large amounts of money with the recent tax changes that we saw in the federal level. We did see an increase in revenue. And as a result, a strong percentage of those revenues went into the rainy day fund in anticipation of if there's an economic shortfall, how the state will make up that difference in terms of cost and the least amount of pain possible. I would argue that there's been times in the state's history where we haven't done that, and the burden has been brought to bear on cities and towns. And so it's our hope not to put cities and towns in that position where we have to make sharp cuts in education and in local aid, and so that we have our rainy day fund in order to do that, and that we set aside these new revenues in large part to help with those expenses and to mitigate any complications or negative impacts that we see with that bill. So when you read in the paper that we're engaging in those issues, it will seem like that's the only thing I'm doing. Please be aware that we're also overseeing public infrastructure projects. We're also seeing housing issues. We're also seeing many of the other components that go into economic development, and it's not solely that. The House has recently announced a couple of initiatives that we'll get to along the list of questions as well. Here he comes. His truck is bigger than mine,
Yeah,
so it's a little slower.
Does she just drive faster than you do, Senator?
I
Welcome.
apologize. We had an amendment deadline at 5 p.m.
Welcome. Nice
And
to see
so,
you.
No, my pleasure. Nice to see you. And I know we're probably being taped, so I won't make any comment on the speed at which I traveled from Boston to Rockport. But if you'd like to discuss it later off camera, I'd be happy to.
Perfect.
So I was just giving an overview of the new position we have in economic development.
Okay.
What we've what comes under that, what that means, and our position there. I was gonna talk about some of the House initiatives, but if
Sure.
you wanna jump in
No,
first.
go ahead.
Okay. So, some of the House initiatives that we announced, the first one is, the Speaker announced on behalf of the body, a $1 billion program for investment in, an investment in a grant program to cities and towns. So that would be $1 billion over 5 years. It would be primarily money that's bonded, and it would have, two main priorities. The first one is coastal resiliency. The second one would be mitigating the effects of climate change. So I know many cities and towns oftentimes think if we only had the dollars to do this, we could do it. So we're looking at the creation of that grant program to really help with. And that's when I talk about having a seat at the table, when the House decides how it wants to set its priorities. That's part of the importance. You know, we're a coastal community. We have seawall needs. We have areas that get flooded. There are initiatives that we would certainly like to take on and institute and implement, but without the dollars to do it, it's hard to do. It's just a pipe dream. So hopefully we'll be able to move forward with that, implement that in this term, and then be able to come back and announce that there's going to be a program available to help cities and towns. The second one is one that I've been a big supporter of since I've been elected. And of all things, ironically, it's really forced the issue has been the opioid epidemic. And so what we're seeing is there are a number of parents who are unavailable to their children because of addiction. Those parents, those children go to live with grandparents. And the state just isn't set up to convert programs readily from parent to grandparent. So what happens? A grandparent already has the challenge of there are emotional issues that need to be addressed with the child. We know, and Ruth may know this better than any of us, but there aren't a whole lot of family pediatric doctors in our area. There aren't a lot of emotional services such as psychiatrists and psychologists, and sometimes it's more than a therapist than you need, but it's a trained medical official. And so the grandparents is at a loss because they have to find a doctor now for the pediatric doctor for the child. They need to find an emotional and psychological support for the child. They also have to find services within the school department, and school departments don't know how to manage some of these issues. So increasing that type of service as well. So what we've said as a house is right now all of these services are siloed. And for the poor grandparent, and the grandparent also loses the daycare voucher and those vouchers that the parent would have had to help with childcare. Yeah, because it's not transferable from parent to grandparent. So what we've said is, okay, we really need to look at the world as it is today. And I use the because it's easiest when you're talking about the loss of a parent or the absence of a parent and the stepping in of a grandchild, but this happens in many families for different reasons, not just opioids. And so what we've said is we can't expect teachers any longer to be the psychologist, to be the surrogate parent, to be the educator, to be the pediatrician, and to be everything under the sun. We just can't do that. And so what we need to do is to make it easier for parents and grandparents that find themselves in these positions with a child that has these extraordinary needs, and to coordinate the care between the medical, the psychology, the psychological, the parenting, and the medical. And so what we're going to do is put the child advocate in charge of overseeing the dismantling of those silos. So we're really talking about the full care of the child in one fell swoop, as opposed to first you go to school, and then you have to call another number to make sure you have your insurance so that you can get to your therapist. And oh, guess what? A lot of child therapists don't even take insurance, so you have to figure out how to pay them out of pocket. And then you have to go to your pediatrician, and hopefully your pediatrician doesn't recommend something different than what the state allows for. And to sort of streamline all of this so that, one, we take the pressure off the educator so that they can just worry about educating. And two, there's what we call wraparound services available. So those services wrap around the student in the best way possible to ensure that we're not just educating kids, but we're addressing the health concerns that prevent them from sitting in a classroom and being able to focus on their studies because they're so burdened with all these other challenges. So those are the two biggest initiatives
Great.
that will come out of the House.
Great.
Do you want to jump in yet, or do you want me? I know I'm Italian and I like to talk, but he likes to talk too, so I try to be fair.
Just keep going as long as there's oxygen left in the room. And when you're done, I'm okay.
You can either jump in, or I can start the list here, or whatever you, however
Well,
you
let me
want.
just
Okay.
suggest a couple of things. As we approach this legislative session, and we're really getting started now in earnest, now that we've adopted rules, and one of the things about the rules that's most significant is that we were able to achieve some more transparency. And by that I mean we were able to do things that make it easier for the public to understand what's happening on Beacon Hill and make it easier for legislators to make more informed decisions. So for instance, we were able to change the rules to allow a 72-hour notice period rather than 48 before a committee vote is taken on matters, so that you have more time to understand what you're taking up. And it was pretty well reported in the two local newspapers of record that we're also working on trying to televise informal sessions of the legislature, because even though formal sessions are usually in many ways the most interesting because that's when controversial matters are taken up, there is a lot of legislation that moves through informal sessions. And sometimes what is controversial or not is in the eyes of the beholder. So our argument has been, we have the new technology, we have the equipment in place, how much extra would it cost to turn it on, to let people watch the informal sessions? So we're working on that as well. So first of all, I think we've made good progress in the rules to allow people to be more engaged in the things that we do. Second, there is some unfinished business that we left behind in the last session. And I know at least one of these things are on your list for tonight, and it pretty much is always on our list, and that is the funding of education. And so at the close of the last session, the House and the Senate each had a bill, and we were unable to reconcile those to get to a final product that got to the governor's desk, or in this case did not get to the governor's desk. But the point I would make is this. The foundation budget was adopted in 1993. I actually was in the House back then and was very vocal about the fact that I thought that the foundation budget had some problems for school districts in our area. And over time, we've actually seen that be borne out. But one of the biggest problems has been the foundation budget was intended to be reviewed, if not every year, every few years. It really didn't happen until 2015. And the only reason it happened is because legislators in our area pushed very hard to get a Foundation Budget Review Commission constituted to say, let's look at what we're actually funding versus what we're actually demanding of our schools. And in many ways, the Foundation Budget Review Commission's report wasn't a surprise. It confirmed what we knew, that there was a dramatic misalignment between what we were funding and what we were doing in the schools. How much of a dramatic misalignment? Depending on whose numbers you use, between 1.8 and $2 billion. So having left that work on the table in the last session, there is a tremendous amount of momentum this year, not just this session, but this year, to get a reform bill passed that will begin to fund those recommendations. Now, essentially, there are 4 recommendations. 2 touch every school district in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and they will not be unfamiliar to you. Number 1 is the amount of students that are assumed to be enrolled in special education. The foundation budget formula dramatically under-recognizes that population. And so therefore, when we look at things like the circuit breaker that helps communities with that cost, it is underfunded. So that's number 1. Number 2 is something that we really never have properly addressed, and that is the cost of teachers' health insurance. Another major cost for every school district in the Commonwealth that we are not properly recognizing. And then there are 2 that depend really on where you are, but generally touch most school districts. One is the population of English language learners, And the second is the population of students that receive a free or reduced school lunch, which is a proxy for the income eligibility of students. It's an easy way to measure that, is to the socioeconomic demographic of your school population. So we are trying to get to those things. And this is as good a time as any to give incredible credit to Superintendent Lebo, because we had asked a while ago for a special meeting in the North Shore Superintendent's Roundtable to focus on this. And our argument was, this is going to be the year where something is likely to happen. Revenues are up. We have new revenue from gaming and marijuana. So we need to do this now. But it's important for us to make sure that whatever we do isn't just, pardon the pun, academic, that it actually helps the communities we represent. So we asked the North Shore Superintendent's Roundtable to look at costs in our region, and they did. And in fact, by virtue of the work that they did, we had a meeting last week or the week before with Jason Lewis, who is the new Senate Chair of the Education Committee, and with Senator Sonia Chang Diaz, who has one of the bills on this subject. And we're going to, in the near future, have a meeting with the House chairs of the committee, one of whom is Paul Tucker from Salem, who's the vice chair. But what Superintendent Lebo was able to do is capture for us a vexing problem that many of us have argued must be addressed in any new iteration of the foundation budget. And that is, in many suburban communities, particularly in our area, we have decreasing enrollment but increasing cost. So many people will say on Beacon Hill, when we try to negotiate through a bill, well, how is that possible? How can you have dramatically fewer students, but your costs are dramatically higher? And what the presentation showed very effectively is that the composition of our student body is changing. We are experiencing in our schools social and emotional issues that we have never had to address before. We are dealing with a whole host of new diagnoses, particularly on the autism spectrum, that are causing the cost of special education to reach new heights, and particularly for students that reach the circuit breaker threshold, which is 4 times the foundation budget. And I won't go too deeply into that, but the higher cost students are becoming more costly, and they're becoming more common. And we would all agree that every one of those students needs all the help that we can give them. No one wants to deprive them of that. So what we were able to learn by virtue of the work that was done locally, and again spearheaded by Superintendent Lebo, and I'm guessing he might be here from the looks at the that I'm seeing out here. So I'm not saying this because I thought you were here, Rob.
He's always hiding in the back.
And I'm not saying it because of the
Lurking.
poster he presented me with at the end of the meeting either, which if you'd like to see, I actually still have it in my truck. But the point is, these folks were able to help us focus on what we need to do to make sure as this big glacier starts to move, that we help communities in our area as well. And so that's a big thing. And I would predict to you that if we're able to work this out, you will likely see a new financial education bill sometime before the beginning of the new fiscal year.
Wow.
It's on a fast track. Now, as we know, anything can go wrong, right? And it did last year. But I have never seen this much momentum around addressing this issue.
Great.
Similarly, and something that's very important to us for a lot of reasons, but chief among them probably is the preservation of Addison Gilbert Hospital.
Yeah.
We have been working on cost containment in the area of healthcare. And we, last year, again, had 2 separate bills. And the bills really took, in some ways, 2 different approaches that we weren't able to hybridize, but we should. Because one of the main thrusts of the House bill was that by nurturing community hospitals, we in fact achieve cost containment because they are a more cost-effective way to do a number of things that people need to have done. And it points up one of the vexing problems about controlling the cost of healthcare in Massachusetts. We are unique. We have done very well at achieving almost universal coverage. 97, 98%. It's pretty much about as high as you're ever going to get. But we have not done as well with controlling the cost of that coverage. And so, in order to do that, you know what it's like for your municipal budget. If you look at the larger number for healthcare spending in the state budget, it's almost half. Almost half. So if we have to get this under control. So one approach was, okay, let's look at infrastructure. And the Senate approach was, let's look more at, not at, as much at providers, but at the system overall. We weren't able to merge those things, and we need to be able to. So we are going to work on that. I don't think you will see it in the first year of the legislative session, because by the time we get done with healthcare and education and a few other things, we'll probably be out of time. But I think you will see it in the next year of the session. And we need to be insistent about making sure that we protect quality care in our community hospital system. And one of the corollaries to that, and I know Ruth is familiar with this, is something that Mayor Taken has identified as a priority for our region, and that is kids who wind up dwelling in our EDs because we don't have enough PD psych beds and enough behavioral health beds. And I know on your list was the thought about how do we have more regional collaboration. This is an issue that is going to require regional collaboration, because all of those beds will not be located on Cape Ann. They must be located on the North Shore. So as part of what we do to reform how we deliver health care, we need to think about the whole behavioral psych issue, because it impacts our schools and it impacts our local hospital. So there are two things that I would suggest are going to happen. And you may see shortly, I have to be careful, you may see a new proposal shortly on healthcare cost containment that will be market-driven and have a lot of things that might resonate well as far as common sense. That may happen soon. But the third thing, and I'll leave with this for right now, and then I'm going to give Ann Margaret a chance to speak again, which she probably thought she wouldn't get once I got the microphone. The third thing is really the issue of renewable energy. And what do we do to continue our movement toward reducing our dependence on fuels that emit carbon emissions? And I would argue that we've done pretty well in Massachusetts with that. If you look at the number of solar installations, we've done pretty well. But we need to do better. We are bound by the terms of the Global Warming Solutions Act to reduce our carbon emissions by as much as 20% by 2025 and 80% by 2050. And unless we do much more than we're doing right now, we are not going to get there. And it's important to all of us. I would suggest it's particularly important in coastal communities. But it's also important in this way. Massachusetts still has some of the highest costs of electricity in the nation for commercial and industrial applications. If we hope to grow the economy, we have to be sensitive to this. So we need to do it carefully. So one of the things that I'm most pleased that we're able to accomplish, that we are still hoping to codify legislatively, but Governor Baker, to his credit, saw this idea moving through the legislature and pulled it out of the pile and signed it as an executive order. And that is for Massachusetts to have an energy plan that goes in 3 to 5 year increments, looks at how much energy we're going to need, and then finds ways to deliver that energy in an environmentally sensitive way and in a cost-beneficial way. We never had an energy plan in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, ever. So we began offering this amendment, and it is now, by executive order law, that's being done, but we want to codify it as well. So you'll see us work on that, and you'll also see us try to increase our procurements of offshore wind and hydroelectricity. The key to what we need to do is to be able to address base load as much as we can. Right? So there are times when the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow. If I'm speaking, the second never happens.
I'm glad you said that.
Thank
and I
you.
didn't have to.
So part of having the hydroelectricity is that it does cover base load because it flows almost constantly. So if you can combine hydroelectricity with wind, you've got a pretty good combination. So you will see us continue to work on that, to try to bring more of that energy in. And by the way, we got some of the first bids in on hydroelectricity, and they were less than predicted. So it proved to not only be good for the environment, but it could be very good for the cost to ratepayers. And along the way, we are currently one of the leading states in the nation for the creation of jobs in this sector. There is a tremendous number of jobs being created, and in fact, one of the things that we're going to have to talk about with our educators in the near future is how to increase the pipeline of folks that are trained to work in those sectors, so that we can match the demand we're going to create and the opportunities, and have the people that can take advantage of those opportunities. So 3 things that I think that you will see in the legislative session. 1, a serious reform of the way we finance schools, at least in terms of foundation budget. 2, some movement on energy. And 3, some really serious work on how we address the issue of healthcare cost containment. So I'll leave it at that right now, but those are sort of 3 overarching themes. And Margaret, I'll stop and I'm going to breathe.
Oh, all righty. So as our tag team effort continues, in the packet that I gave you, if you look at the one that's marked number 1, that's House Bill 576. It's the House bill in terms of education reform. And I actually co-sponsored the bill along with Rep. Tucker. And most importantly, for the following reason. This takes a look at a number of issues, but chief among them are the actual cost of retiree and employee health care benefits, looking at special ed and fully funding the circuit breaker, as we talked about. And also, this is the bill that says we need to do this and implement it by the year 2024. And so there are other bills that get into not having an implementation date. And my fear is, as the senator articulated, is that we allow these things to go on and there's disagreement and there's not a forced deadline as to when it needs to happen. So there's a copy of the bill if you'd like to look through it, if you'd like to, email us comments. But there's a copy of the bill that specifically says by 2024, we need to look at full implementation. And it doesn't mean we won't take pieces along the way, but we need to work towards it and have a deadline in order to do it. In addition to that, I've co-sponsored bills that have grants relative to early education and high-quality early education, so that we make sure that we take these children at the most productive and highest learning periods, which for whatever reason seem to happen between the ages of 5 and 3rd grade, and we really capture their ability to learn. And I have to say, you were like perfect. They would think that this was scripted because our talks mirrored each other so well. So as you know, the 2 big priorities, the environment and making sure that we really provide these services to the young folks. And looking at
I
the
really
list.
called perfect. I just want to cherish that for a moment. Thank you.
Don't let it go to your head.
We all heard it.
It's on tape.
Now, the second issue that you have on your list specifically is the MBTA. And I think
sure
there's...
you never hear any issues.
Never hear anything about the MBTA. I would say, since we are on TV, we've done a lot to try to notify people that there's going to be a considerable amount of work being done on Route 1,
Yes.
going into Boston and coming home from Boston. And, to the best that we can, we're going to do what we can to mitigate the effects on commuters. And we had a meeting, we have a meeting tomorrow, the North Shore delegation on that, along those lines. But it's something that we're watching carefully. We've had a public hearing also on the repair and replacement of the train bridge, the Blimmen Bridge, as well as we see. And, we were really pleased to work together with Congressman Moulton to get dredging money as well for the Annisquam River. So it's interesting that all of these efforts are taking place all at the same time, and working on the careful coordination of those projects. So that's general in terms of the MBTA.
Because I didn't want to get too far astray from what you said. With respect to the things that are going to happen, we would prefer to be involved before the fact rather than after the fact because of what happened the last time around. You know, being notified last minute of things that were going on, and I'm not blaming you guys, I blame the MBTA for this stuff. And it was extremely disruptive. There probably could have been better ways that we could have found to address this. And you got business owners coming to us saying, you know, what are you guys doing? And it's the MBTA kind of jamming this at us with absolutely giving us no voice whatsoever. And that was very troubling for me going, you know, to have to deal with that.
And it's a concern of ours as well. I can tell you that it's sometimes we're given a heads up, sometimes we're caught off guard, and we're never pleased when we're caught off guard because we have everybody else that we need to answer to as well. So to the extent that we can get ahead of these issues, we certainly, it's our intention to do that.
We're happy to do that, and on issues where we have enough time, we're actually happy to bring them out here to talk to you. We've done that in the past on
We have done it in the past.
other issues, and we'd be happy to do it again. I would make this point that I think is important not to be lost, is we have the replacement right now of the train bridge over the Annisquam River. And there were many configurations for how that could have been accomplished. We fought to make sure that rail service will be uninterrupted, with very few exceptions. There are a couple of times when they actually need to shut down the whole thing for safety. But for the most part, it's a very ambitious plan that we fought hard to get as an option, so that they're doing it right now. They're reinforcing half of the bridge, and then they're going to split it in half. So as you can imagine, there'll be some breaths held when they do that split, because they want to make sure that the half that's supposed to stand doesn't collapse. But it's going to stand, and they'll repair the other half and then reverse that. So I think it's actually good news that maybe has been a little bit under-recognized, that we aren't going to have those kind of major service disruptions. There are certainly other disruptions that I think, you know, we need to work on to make sure you know about. But as for that one, I think we've made pretty good progress. We also work together, and I'm very pleased with this, on the positive train control and to address the issue of the towers that would have been put up, and we
Right.
caused the MBTA together. We caused the MBTA to look at that. None of us doesn't want to have Wi-Fi service on the train, but we also want to make sure that we don't ruin the character of our communities to do it.
Right.
We partnered on that, and we were successful.
One of the things that I'd ask you to partner on also, and this has been an issue because I live right there and I've gotten a lot of calls from people who live in the area as well, is the idling and the diesel smoke and the things, you know, I know we've spoken of it. I've called Rick Cologne at ungodly hours because if I'm going to suffer, he's going to suffer a little bit too. And we just need to come up with some sort of a solution. It's loud, it's dirty, it's just not a good situation, and I think we can very easily find some solutions that will provide a better quality of life for a lot of the people that are around there. We obviously don't want the train to go away. We love the train. It's one of our lifelines coming in here to bring tourists and people going to work and everything else. But we need to find a way to make that work in a more efficient way. You know, I think if we can have your voices attached to that, that would go in a great direction to maybe facilitating a real change to this, to make a real, because you get, you know, they'll shut them off at a certain time, and if the temperature gets below a certain, I get all that, but let's come up with a policy, figure out what it is, that way everybody knows what the rules of the game are. And that's, I think, that's what's been one of the biggest problems that I've had when I get these phone calls, is that there are no rules. It's just whenever they decide to do something, they do it because they can, without regard to the people who live there. So I know you folks are sensitive to that, and I know that's a priority, because constituent happiness is why everybody gets elected. We're no exception. But if you could help with that, that would be great.
So let me offer you a couple thoughts. First, it's good that you called them at ungodly hours. I just hope you didn't call them ungodly things.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't do that.
But, you know, one of the great areas of partnership that we've had recently was to work together to do two things at that site. Number one was to get the upgrade for the electrical system so that hopefully we could reduce some of the idling by keeping the trains warm with electric systems. But second, as part of that, we insisted that if we were going to do that, and not only you, but your administration as well as the DPW worked with us to make sure that we moved the track at Evans Field so that we didn't have pedestrian conflict with people trying to access the field. So in a way, we got a 2-for-1 out of that. That being said, I will tell you that we have some frustration when it comes to that station. And it comes because we have had so many false starts around rebuilding the station. And the last iteration of this was probably, 4 or 5 years ago, when we had a number of different plans. We all worked hard to come up with a consensus. The idling is an issue, whether you do the so-called hush hut or whether you do other things. But it is still a bone of contention for us that the station doesn't have the improvements that we'd like it to have. So we are happy to continue to work on that, to bring folks here. And maybe you're right, Don, maybe it initially is a protocol, but hopefully someday it will be more than a protocol. So there's sort of operating and capital infrastructure. Operating is easier to address, and there's some good folks at the MBTA that we can continue to engage in those conversations. For instance, Jody Ray, who runs a lot of the railroad operations, is a fantastic person. And, we could convene another discussion about it because you're right. The train is a major asset. And we don't want to lose it, but we also don't want to make people miserable, and we don't want to affect their health.
Right.
Yeah, we have more of a list, obviously, so I want to keep moving, but just to note also, in this last Super Bowl parade was probably the most recent, right, where they tell everyone, take public transportation to the city, they get millions of people into the city, and then they're all stuck waiting in line. So then we have the people who took the train and then the T-in to see the parade, but then we have all the people who live on the North Shore who work in there who are stuck as well. And then you see Mayor Walsh saying, well, we can't change the parade to a weekend because the Patriots have a contract and they won't. But I'm kind of like, well, what about everyone who, you're literally begging people to take the train. It's not cheap to take the train anymore.
Not at all.
And then we have people, and we're also begging people to take the train to work. So it's kind of like somewhere has to give on these days. So are you guys so who kind of negotiates with the MBTA/Keolis on those issues?
So we didn't get a lot of notice on that one. And, it could be one of the contributing factors to Gronk leaving because it was so frustrating. But
And for the most part, people are good sports,
Yeah.
right? But in Boston, it's happening more and more that there are more days that,
so,
Thank God.
well, this is an important conversation because we need to send the message that when that happens in the future, we need to know more about it and we need to have more of a discussion.
Yeah.
Because most of us learned about it by watching television.
Yeah.
That the mayor, who we have a good working relationship with, had reached an agreement largely around player contracts
Right.
and their ability to do it during the week. But the
Right.
question arises, okay, if you have to do that, could you have added more trains?
Because
To
Boston residents aren't the ones standing in line for 2
Right.
hours to get home from work.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there has to be some kind of give and take. So that's why I was kind of wondering who's doing that would be you guys, right?
Yeah.
I would assume.
Well, it can be. I think that's
When
the
you know
point.
about it,
It
yeah.
wasn't the last
Yeah.
time.
We were
because-
actually in your office when the announcement came
Yeah,
out. And,
yeah, it was.
you know,
Yeah.
so for us, the difficulty is the parade route goes right around the State House. So we're either not able to get in or we're able to get in and can't get out. So we share the frustrations of folks who are waiting 2 hours in line. And people always say to us, well, can't you just show them your ID and say I have to go to work? And it's like, do you realize
Yeah.
how many people are on that perimeter that, for
Yeah.
blocks and
Yeah.
blocks and blocks, our cars can't even, so it's frustrating all the way around.
Yeah.
And I would share too, that it was frustrating a couple years ago when we had 10 feet of snow, because if you remember, the National Guard was diverted to clear the parade route.
Yes.
And I'm a Pats fan,
Yeah, right.
but it's extraordinarily
Right.
frustrating when we're calling the National Guard to say we have citizens who we can't plow out, because the snow's too much and
Yeah.
we don't have the apparatus to do it. Can you come to our communities? And they're
Yeah.
on TV clearing the
End of the
parade
line
route.
problems.
Yeah, so,
But they're, you know, they are legitimate, obviously. you
yes,
know,
yes, so the parade, each parade, especially the Patriots ones, just because of the time of year that it falls in, the Super Bowl falls in, is always a headache, but it's something that we keep working at.
To be honest, we weren't consulted in that case,
Interesting.
but
Yeah.
anticipating more victories, we will
Or
now.
more, or more other, you know, just
Yeah.
public events where they're.
No, so we'll carry
Yeah.
the message back that, you know, we really need to talk about that.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say is we were able to talk to a lot of the folks that come into the city that day, because it was very quickly discovered by the masses that the State House was the nearest place that had public facilities. And so, we got to
A lot of
talk to a lot of
visitors.
people, yeah.
Great.
But it's a point well taken.
Before we leave the MBTA, I
Yeah.
just want to mention that I, for one, would love to have you bring the MBTA out to meet with us. We've been trying to get them to actually pay attention to two important historical artifacts that were essentially ignored at the renovation of the station, and that is the grain building and the crane. And both of those relate to the history of Rockport, granite, and transportation. And we wrote a letter to them, they ignored it. Mitch called, they ignored it. I think Mitch finally called your office, I'm not sure, and
We were able to get something out of them, and the proposal for them was to put a fence around it and spray paint it.
spray paint it.
Spray paint.
Now, these are artifacts that their own research has documented the history of. There's a really fascinating report that the MBTA paid for that documents the history of these two objects and their historical relevance and importance. We think it would be great to make them what people see when they first arrive in town and make them sort of a center of reception, documenting the history of the town. And all they want to do is spray paint them, and the grain building is going to fall down if it's not soon dealt with. So these are properties that they own that we need them to collaborate with us on this.
Maybe just connect, like getting us in front of someone who
Right.
would listen.
Yeah,
I
who'll
think
listen
that's
to us.
literally a
A
communicate.
named
I think if we
person
can get
who-
the right audience, we can kind of take it from there. We just need someone to, you to
Right.
connect us to someone who can listen.
Mitch, can you just follow up with
Sure,
a
we'll,
request for
we'll,
us?
absolutely, we'll touch
And
base on
then
that.
piggybacking on that, we have the easement for the ramp to Evans.
Yes, that would be an additional item that we'd look for your support on, similar to the support we received from your offices on moving the tracks back. We've been somewhat on the hamster wheel of bureaucracy, trying to get an answer and to move an easement forward
All we
with
need
the
is an easement
MBTA. We keep getting bounced back to this, just go to our website and do all of this. Well, we're trying to work something out for a very small piece of land, that's very small sliver, and we haven't quite gotten anything positive back on that. So certainly when we have that larger discussion, and we'll include that in our reach out to you, any assistance there as well to nudge them
Yeah.
into making that happen so that we can continue to make that
Because
facility
it's
accessible.
almost a completely funded ramp to go, because they moved the track, so it's kind of on the corner there, putting a handicap accessible ramp, really nice entrance to Evans Field, and then some handicap accessibility once you're up there, so that once people get onto the field, they can use the field. And kind of piggybacking a tiny bit of CPC money to finish it off, but the easement is kind of the missing piece, that we kind of can't put the cart before the horse. It's
So-
like a no-brainer for
Yeah.
them, we just need
We,
the.
we can definitely open up those lines of
Great.
communication, and Mitch, we always appreciate your work with us, too.
Certainly.
And it deserves to be reiterated now, and we're going to let the MBTA know that they ignore Mitch Vieira at their own peril.
Well, there you go.
And we're gonna, but we need to have the conversation, so there's at least,
Great.
two categories of things.
Right.
And I have to admit, I was at the home of a Rockport resident who happens to be present this evening, and I heard about the grain house the other
where is
night,
he?
so the other afternoon.
There he is, he's
And,
hiding.
and so we understand the importance of that. The crane has been more the subject of discussion over the last decade, and there's been a lot of discussions about what to do with it. At one time, for instance, there was a discussion about relocating it to Halibut Point State Park because of its relevance to the
Yeah.
granite situation, but that didn't materialize. So it's been sort of a football that's been kicked around, but we really haven't gotten to a good solution. So what I would suggest is that we can bring the MBTA to the table, and maybe you can also help us to bring some local historical expertise to the table, so we can talk about the most beneficial way to preserve and interpret those things.
Yep,
Absolutely.
great.
Great,
So,
yeah,
Great.
perfect, okay. Next.
Okay, climate resiliency.
Yeah, you
So
already-
there's the House initiative that we talked about. There's also the governor's initiative. And my friends Mass Fiscal are at it again with another flyer. But the governor has proposed doubling the stamp tax on the sale of houses. And putting that money into an account. Whether or not that will happen, I don't know. It has to be part of a larger discussion. But certainly that's the approach that he suggested for increasing funding to climate resiliency projects. So it's a priority of ours, it's a priority of the administration's, it's a priority of the Senate. So somehow, I'm sure the three entities will come together and figure out a way to do it. But certainly, I would argue it's one of my top priorities. And I think the senator would chime in that it's one of his too.
Well, absolutely, and I would just offer a couple of thoughts. One, congratulations, because you were able to get a municipal
Yes.
vulnerability program grant, and you are certified as a green community. Both very important things,
right.
and you have a community compact. So right now, the community compact centers around recreational space and open space and things of that nature. But as we approach round 2, this could also be the subject of part of your application, and Mitch, we can talk about
Absolutely.
that to tee that up. But I would argue that Rockport has done some very important things on that front, and we need to continue to recognize that. And as we move forward with resilience, I would also point out, and this is something that doesn't always get picked up, that in our part of the state, we are leading the country at looking at ways to use natural resources to promote resilience. And specifically what I mean by that is in the Great Marsh, we are doing incredible work to show how to cause the marshes to elevate, to keep pace with sea level, and dissipate wave energy, and detain stormwater. And so we have been putting money into that. Our legislative delegation puts into the work of the Great Marsh Coalition, maybe $50,000 a year, and it has generated millions for people to continue to look at this. So, number one, it is clearly a priority, and we are working on additional programs for it. And number two, we are looking at innovative ways to not only build hard structures to combat climate change and to adapt, but also to use natural resources to do it. And that same resident who told me about the grain house had to listen to me expound on this for probably an hour and a half this week. But it's a very passionate thing for me, because after Hurricane Sandy did its damage in New Jersey and New York, the federal government began to think differently. And certainly hard structures have their place, but natural structures have their place too. And the additional benefit of that, I'm going to pontificate for just a moment, is that the newest reports that have been released indicate that when we allow the marshes to be used as a natural defense, we also sequester more carbon and take it out of the atmosphere. So I'm particularly pleased with what we're doing in our part of the state. And Rockport is always part of those conversations. And I would suggest that at the Northeast Coastal Coalition, which is an organization that we recently formed within the last year, you are well represented. Either Joe is there representing the DPW, or your harbor masters are there, or other public officials from Rockport to be part of that conversation. And it's something you should be really proud of, because we are, to show that we can work in a collaborative way, in a regional way, and we can address some of these issues.
Well, that you just kind of said what I wanted you to say, so thank you. And that was, the funding is great, and we're very grateful for that, and we're grateful for your advocacy. I think, speaking for myself, the challenge that I see for a small town like Rockport is that we are a small town, and we've got an enormous challenge, but we're not alone. And I'd like to, so I brought a copy of the State Hazard Mitigation and Climate Adaptation Plan, which basically took a snapshot of the entire state. I'm sure you're familiar with it. I wonder if there's a way where we can look at funding for initiatives that look at the entire region, rather than Rockport looking for a grant and an MVP grant and climate resiliency and these kind of individual efforts. using volunteers and people like Joe who have a few other jobs on his plate, is there a way where we can collaborate as a region for funding to come up with solutions that we can implement together?
So now I'm going to reciprocate and you said exactly what I hope you would say.
This could be dangerous. I know.
So I'm going to use an example from 2008, roughly, when we had a situation on Plum Island and in Salisbury where we had severe erosion.
Right.
We had the need to dredge the Merrimack River, and we had 3 communities who, in one way or another, were all suing each other, and absolutely nothing was going to happen. And so a group of us got together, and we created something called the Merrimack River Beach Alliance. And to get into the alliance, you had to do 3 things. You had to drop your lawsuit, you had to agree to be respectful, and you had to agree that you would, in the meetings, work in a collaborative way. Since that time, we have dredged the Merrimack River once and put close to 200,000 cubic yards of sand on the beaches. We have gotten geotubes permitted as a means of combating erosion. We have gotten both of the jetties at the mouth of the Merrimack River repaired. We are going to very soon participate in a dredging project in the Piscataqua River in New Hampshire and Maine and obtain another, hopefully, 350,000 cubic yards, thanks in large part to Congressman Moulton and our federal delegation, all because we were able to sit at the same table.
Yeah.
So we've taken that model and we've expanded it to the Northeast Coastal Coalition,
Okay.
which goes, interestingly enough, from Cape Ann to the New Hampshire border. And the key to it is that everybody sits at the same table. So we have the DEP, for instance, the DCR, the Army Corps of Engineers. Oftentimes we have other administration officials. We have local officials. And I think, and Margaret was at our last meeting, we were talking about dredging. We had approximately 65 people from the region talking about how we can do a regional dredging project. Because one of the things that we're trying to focus on in our part of the state is that we have a lot of pent-up projects that need to be dredged that we can never get to.
Yeah.
And so, a couple of things. We're trying to learn from Barnstable County, where the county operates its own dredge, and the communities pay per cubic yard to have the dredging done in their communities, and they get 10-year permits so that they can continuously be rotating so the waterways don't get clogged with infiltration. We're not sure if that will work here, but we're trying to learn. And at the last meeting, you were very well represented by the Harbor Department. And as I said, Joe often comes to a lot of the meetings, and everybody is at the table. And so we want to encourage you to do that. Now, this is not just a hypothesis. We urge the administration, the Baker administration, and Governor Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito have created a dredging program that never existed in state government. And it's modeled after the Mass Works program, which we've all had some benefit from, where it's an infrastructure improvement that creates economic opportunity. And last year, $4 million went out. Not a tremendous amount of money, but it's a start to help communities that the Army Corps of Engineers will never get to. And our idea is not to compete with the Corps, but to do the things that they can't or won't be able to do.
Yeah.
And so we worked together as a legislative delegation, and in the environmental bond bill that was passed at the end of the last session, we set aside not only $50 million for the Baker administration to use in that program, but we also said that money from it could be also used to purchase a regional set of dredging equipment, number one. And number two, we earmarked specifically, and I believe it was $2.5 million, for the region north of Boston to purchase its own equipment. Then we put in the budget for the current fiscal year money to study the feasibility of what that would look like. And thanks to a collaborative effort between the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission and the MAPC, the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission, the study is underway, the consultant has been hired, and we are on the ground with a study to look at if this is feasible and how we would do it. So it's a tremendous example of how we can do those things. So I couldn't agree more. I happen to be the chair of both of those organizations. But we're trying to take a model that has been recognized nationally, that if you put people around the table,
Right.
then it's efficient because you're not now chasing the core to find an answer. The core is there. And you're not going to hit a dead end with DEP, saying we can't do that. And so, again, you already represented. We welcome any, if Mitch wants to come or anybody else wants to come. But
Yeah.
I do want you to know that you do have people there
Great,
that have been great representatives of the town so far.
great. Sounds like you need to use that model with the MBTA.
There are many models that have been instituted with the MBTA.
So I will just tell you that after the winter of 2015, I wrote the amendment that created the Fiscal Management and Control Board. And we are not done yet.
Real quick, the other thing under
Yeah.
environmental, Halibut Point State Park. Some of the improvements that they're planning include lighting the park at night, and it's used by astronomers, local astronomers, and they're very upset about that. Sounds like you're already aware of that.
Yes.
Okay.
So, number one, Halibut Point State Park is long overdue for some additional attention. And we have worked very hard to convince the administration of DCR to conduct those improvements. And we insisted that they come and listen to people in Rockport
Yeah.
before the project went further. And the commissioner himself came.
Oh, okay.
And that point was made
Okay.
very vocally about the lighting and even some other things.
Yeah.
There were some improvements that folks thought were not consistent with the character of
Yeah,
the
there was
town.
some, it almost was a little bit overdone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was, for instance, there was a sign that looked like the sign that shows you you're in Hollywood.
Yes.
That was going to go and
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
Halibut Point State Park.
Yeah, it looked a little amusement park.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So there's good news in that the capital improvements are going to happen,
Yeah.
and they're underway. Those comments were taken back, and I actually talked to Commissioner Roy, when was it? About 2 weeks ago, about using directional lighting as opposed to lighting that goes everywhere, because it is a remarkable place to watch the sky.
Yeah.
So we're going to follow up. It's
Okay.
not, I can't say that it's done yet,
Okay.
but we have been on them to make sure that they use lighting, A, that's directional
great.
and pointed downward,
Thank you.
and B, that's timed,
Yeah.
so that it goes off at a certain time, so that
Right.
then you have the darkness back. And so, credit though to the town. A lot of people turned out for that meeting, and it was
Yeah.
very, very
Yeah,
positive.
It was
So-
a quick notice, but it was really well attended.
Yeah.
It was well
So-
attended.
And
Yeah.
and just so everybody knows, Drew's here from my office. He's my Cape Ann person, my legislative assistant, and his mother is part of the astronomy group.
Ah.
So we are
Good.
heavily lobbied each and every morning.
Vested interest.
So,
Well, the park's not open. I don't think it's open is it open after dark? Or is it?
well, that's why the lighting needs to go out at a certain
Exactly,
point.
right,
So,
to
yeah.
tell people time to go, right?
So number one, we're going to ask them to come back with a progress report
Great.
soon,
Okay.
because I know there's also an issue of trash.
In
But
the winter.
that leads us to the second point,
Yeah.
which is, we have also been arguing for operational changes to have more staffing and more consistent staffing.
Yeah.
Because the park has been treated, most recently, as a satellite to the Salisbury Beach Reservation. And it really needs to have its own staffing complement. So we're working on that.
Okay.
But
Great.
Thank
we've,
you.
we've made a lot of progress.
Great.
That's great. Thanks. Okay, well, just a few more really quick
I
things.
spoke to Joe Parisi briefly before the meeting, and let me first, congratulate you guys on the 2 grants that you received from the Dam and Seawall Fund, and the senator and I sort of once again led on that effort to make sure, given where we're located and the work that needs to be done on it. There was a first grant for $228,000 and a second grant for $750,000, so over $1 million from that fund to help in the process. And so now we're looking at the $2.5 million that we authorized in the 2018 environmental bond bill. And so we've already spoken about some of the paperwork that we need
This is
from
for
the
the
city.
Long Beach.
For Long
Yeah,
Beach,
just
yes.
to
Yep, so that's in progress.
Okay.
So, right, I know you guys want to move along, so we're just trying to be brief.
We're good at multiple choice if you want to ask questions.
Yeah. And, you know, I think we talked about ways to work closer as a region, but just to recap quickly, I mean, when it came to Chapter 70, the superintendent was really helpful. We get together, I think it's almost quarterly, with the superintendent's roundtable, where all the superintendents meet, and we attend those meetings to hear from them as a region. The Chamber of Commerce, I know Dawn's been to some of those meetings, hosts government affairs and legislative breakfasts, where, again, quarterly we get together as a group, and we hear directly from the towns and the superintendents. Again, the senators talked about the coalition that we've had from Rockport all the way up to the New Hampshire border to talk about environmental concerns. So I think there's a lot that's being done, in addition to Mitch contacting us on your behalf. So I do think that we are working closely together. I think sometimes it just helps to have the conversation, to reiterate all the things that are happening that we might not all be aware of that are happening. But I feel really strongly about the connections that both the senator and I have, you know, working together and strategizing along with the input from the cities and towns in the area to make sure that we're doing the best we can to work together.
And so I would add one more that's emerging, and that is transportation.
Yep.
As an area that we're going to be able to work more together on. We have a regional transit authority. There is a report that is about to be issued that is going to talk about how to help regional transit authorities work better at meeting demand and increasing volume. And actually, we had a representative to that group, and it happened to be Paul Lundberg, who is the president of the Gloucester City Council. So a lot of good local knowledge, number one. And number two, the North Shore Chamber of Commerce has proposed an interesting idea, and that is that we look at a regional transit authority of some sort, even if it's only a planning effort. And that idea is beginning to gain a little bit of momentum. And it makes a lot of sense, particularly if we're trying to connect job and educational opportunities on the North Shore.
Yeah.
So I just flagged that for your attention. And then, I guess lastly, I would say that I think Gloucester has reached out to try to collaborate and look at a number of different things. You know, we could certainly look in the future, in my humble opinion, about what we do for ALS ambulance service. Rockport has an outstanding ambulance department.
Yeah.
And the question is, what do we do for ALS? Could we do that better as a region, and particularly with ALS Intercept, number one? And number two is emergency communications. Certainly having a mega facility hasn't worked, but the question is, could we do that on a more localized basis? And there might be some incentive funding for that, but it's got to work for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I would also, I mean, it's kind of an ask of you guys, but it's an ask to make us work harder, which is probably a good thing for you. But you have a really unique kind of bird's eye view of Cape Ann, right? You get to, you know, you come here, you see us and all the workings in Rockport, same in Gloucester, same in Essex. So it'd be great if you see things that we might not notice where we could collaborate. For example, merging our veteran services has been like just spectacular for the town. I mean, Adam is amazing, but also it has just been such a win-win for all the veterans who use those services as well. So if there are other places you see kind of in your workings and dealings where you're like, you know what, if Rockport and Essex were to like work together on this, like win-win for everyone, or even beyond, you know, kind of more North Shore, that would be super helpful, because sometimes we're so entrenched in what's going on in Rockport. Like I'll see, you know, the mayor doing a press conference, you know, on a grant, and I'm like, oh, we would have applied for that grant with them. You know what I mean? But like, you know, but they're busy in Gloucester, everyone's busy, right? So sometimes it just takes the outsider to say, hey, like, it just occurred to us, but you're all working on the same thing. So that would be helpful.
We're happy to do that.
Happy to do that.
Yeah.
What kind of a schedule do you think we can come up with to get on a regular schedule? How would you suggest that? Because obviously you folks are very difficult to get with, not because you're all over the place. You have a lot of things that you have going on. And we want to try to get our unfair share of what we can get for Rockport to make sure that it, you know, we take care of our folks. So what kind of a schedule would you suggest? Would it be quarterly? Would it be biannually? What would you suggest to maximize our communication, which is always open by email, and I have your numbers, I can call you. But here in this kind of a forum, how would you suggest that?
So I would point out, number one, that we do communicate regularly with Mitch, and we're happy also to communicate with you, even at ungodly hours, Don.
You're in,
And so,
and I won't call you
You
ungodly
sign up
names.
for ungodly,
That's
I'm
right.
not signing up for 'em.
but I would think that to make it sustainable and workable, biannually might make sense. I think quarterly might be a little bit difficult
Yeah.
for both of us.
And when would be the most strategic times for that to happen? I mean, would it be before budget season, so if we
Yes.
needed something, I mean, so would this be the time right now, so we say we would do it in March, and then again, when? You tell me, in the
Yeah,
fall?
I think the fall,
After town meeting?
yeah, yeah.
Well, do you also meet with
October
the
and
school
March,
committee
maybe.
in the fall?
We do, we meet with the school
Because it-
committee usually.
With a joint meeting?
You know, honestly, like a joint, in Rockport, I think a joint meeting could be really helpful
Yeah.
if we scheduled together, because honestly, like, number one on our list tonight was education, so, would that be reasonable, Rob?
I think so.
I don't, you know, obviously not to steal each other's time, but we're all working on the same stuff, it's one pot of money.
And to be fair, a lot of times at our meetings with the school committee, we also talk about municipal government. We talk
Exactly.
about
Yep.
unrestricted general government aid, and they have really good cookies. So there's another incentive for us to have a joint meeting.
Yeah.
School committee has cookies? Where'd that money come from?
Yeah, perfect, so maybe we can, if we did like March and September, you know, something. Rob, do you have a comment?
These two have been incredibly friendly fire for our town and the schools. We made our point by creating a mythical district to try to smooth out all the differences. In our presentation, we met to the superintendents, and we put 19 towns together, and we were going back and forth about a name. We finally settled on the Tartown Regional School System. Named after our good senator.
I think the Tarante Federal School District would be good.
Great, so,
They're really helpful. You can get them anytime you
Yeah.
want. They're responsive, they listen.
yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you, yeah, we can't thank you enough for all you do.
Thank
But I think that would be a good goal for our next meeting, to be a joint meeting with the school
That would
committee
be
in the
great.
fall.
Yeah.
Great.
It'd be
Right
helpful.
after
to-
town
Town meeting.
fall
Yeah, after
meeting.
fall town meeting. Yeah, and I know you
Sometime in
both make an
October.
effort to make it to our town meeting, which is really nice as well. And speaking for the residents, they really appreciate that you do that as well.
But we like listening to your moderator, too. So.
It's entertaining.
Yeah, I think Mitch has.
And just one other item, it's become my weekly call to HERAC in your office, Senator, so I'll ask you, since you're here, any assistance that both of you can provide in moving the Rockport alcohol legislation
right.
through. I know that HERAC continues on your behalf to really nudge on that. Anything we can do to get that back in April would be really tremendous, so we can get it on the June ballot.
So the latest update about that is that we are trying to get the language straightened out, because we believe the board will have to take another vote on an amendment.
Okay.
And so we're trying to do that as quickly as we can, so that then we can get it back and get it for you guys. So,
Perfect. Thank you. We appreciate the support that you've had on that. It's gotten to the point now that when the gentleman who answers your phone says my name, HERAC just yells across the room, "No updates, same, we're plugging along, we're trying." But we do appreciate the support on that, very much from both
Thank
of you.
you.
Yeah.
And I just, before we leave, just in the packet that I gave you, just number 4 and 5. So 5 is a press release on the Greenworks plan that we've been talking about, the $1 billion investment.
Okay.
Number 4 is a bill that I filed to increase fees at the registry, and by doing so, those fees would go into the CPA fund and help get communities back up to a 50% reimbursement.
Great.
So we are, I think that's one of the best local aid programs, the CPA program, and in terms of what
Oh,
we're able,
Yeah.
to preserve, to purchase for open space and
Yeah.
affordable housing.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
CPA has been one of the top things in Rockport, honestly, that I can remember. I mean, we have been able to make things happen here that would have never, ever been possible otherwise. Yeah.
So, and we've heard that loud and clear, so that was
Yeah,
one of the
great.
impetuses to
Thank
get
you for that.
involved in that.
So I'm going to give you a really quick packet, and I'm going to take 1 minute to explain it. First
You
is a
give me those,
letter
I'll pass
that I give to you to show you the power of collaboration, because last year legislators in our region collaborated to write a letter to the 2 chairs of Ways and Means on a bunch of school issues that needed to be funded,
Great.
and we got results. The second thing is a summary of sort of where we stand on some basic accounts and where they're headed. That would be of interest to you. So we just wanted to show you again the power that we've had by all working together. And we were able to highlight a bunch of different things that were important in the budget, and we got some progress last time.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you both very
Yeah.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you very much for
Thank you.
coming in. We're glad you came. I know it's been tough to schedule this, but we really do appreciate it.
Yeah, and our condolences too on the loss of Peter. He was just the model citizen of what an active participant should be.
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. He was just like a week or so ago calling and making sure that projects that he started, that we're gonna get them finished. So
Yeah,
something tells me that we will see those through.
we will.
Peter
He
was
an
persistent.
amazing man
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and a great partner for all of us, and a great example of citizenship.
yeah, yeah, definitely. So thank you for that
Thank you.
very much.
Well,
Nice
thank
to
you.
see you both as
Thank you
always.
very much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
We'll see you in the fall for cookies.
See you in the fall for cookies, Rob.
Gonna run through.
Yeah.
Let's take just a 1-minute break and then we're gonna roll through everything else. Great. Hold on just 1 second. Is there a motion?
Where is Paul?
Yeah, where am I?
Or do we want to wait?
Last page,
Should we wait?
G10.
Should we, do you want to wait a minute on the motion? Hold on 1 second. We might have you wait on the
G10.
motion.
Yep.
It's on the 3rd page.
Yep.
Yeah, so let's wait a minute on the motion, okay? Because there might be an amendment to it. Okay, welcome. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself for the record.
Yes, I'm David Halibut, 180 Granite Street, Rockport, Mass.
Great. And then just tell us a little bit about your idea.
Well, it's pretty basic. It's simple. I'm a stonemason, been a stonemason pretty much since I started working. And I have a passion for carvings and sculptures and stuff. And growing up on the island, one can't help but fall in love with everything it has to offer. And you can't help but just look at the painting behind you. It offers everything. Everything you talked about in my letter. You know, all that Rockwood has to offer, from the artist, from the light, to the fishing, to its granite history, everything into that. And through my years of doing the carvings and stuff, I felt, you know, the nautical theme of living on an island, in which I always profess that, you know, every yard should have a compass. And I demand that if you live on the water and you don't, it's kind of like shame on you. You really should have a compass. Everybody should have a compass. And I can't help but, you know, travel around Rockport, doing my work over the years, and notice certain places that call me, especially on the top of Bearskin Neck. There needs to be a compass up there, hand-carved compass for all to enjoy. I've enclosed a photo, I don't know if you have it.
We do.
Of the rock,
Yep.
which is off the side. I have better photos that show it more, better of where it's located if you need to see. But it's basic, it's just simple, and it's just, you know, I just believe it needs to be there. It's for all to enjoy.
Any particular reason why, David, you want to put it at the top of the neck? Is there any other places to put?
Well, it overlooks Sandy Bay.
Mhm.
It's a focal point, and when people come, and not just locals, but when people visit, and visitors come, and they come up there, and they go up to the top, and they look at this vast open bay, and now they'll see the compass, and it'll give them direction, and they can look at the light, and they can look at where they're from, and have a point of interest, and I think it just brings harmony to the situation up there.
Mm.
Any other?
Would you be opposed to putting it at, like, I'm just throwing out
Yeah.
ideas, maybe the headlands?
Well, actually, Denise had just said the headlands too. So I
think it's a great idea.
I love the idea. Let me just give you a little bit of background. Recently, we had someone want to donate it was a beautiful sculpture to put at the end of the neck. And we said no, not because we didn't like the sculpture, but because it was our feeling that the end of the neck should kind of just be natural and undisturbed. Because once we say yes to one person doing something on one rock, then we're kind of opening the up. That being said, though, I'm getting the sense that everyone really likes the idea of a compass. Like, it's really super cool.
Yeah.
So that's why we were trying to figure out, like, where else, maybe the headlands, like, where else could work.
Back
It's just
beach,
that
maybe?
Back beach,
Yeah, I mean, anywhere would work.
Granite
You know, as
Pier.
long as on the bay.
Okay.
I just,
Granite Pier.
Granite Pier.
The end of
I've
Granite
also
Pier.
wanted to do one at Granite Pier, was my second
Okay.
choice, because I go there a lot.
Yeah, so it really wasn't, didn't have anything to do with your
Yeah, of course.
idea. It's just one of those things where if we say yes to you doing a compass, and if someone shows up
Perfect
next week and is
sense.
like, well, I want to do a,
No, we know
purple compass.
Rockport, yep. Yeah, right.
You know.
I've heard of that.
And with our luck, that's exactly what would happen.
Oh, of
Then
course
we'd
it
have
would.
a blue compass and a green compass.
Yeah.
And before you know it, we'd have a rainbow of compasses.
To tell you the truth, Granite Pear was my very first, when I first started, when I was, a while ago, when I started doing compasses, I'm like, I wanted to do one up there at first, so.
So maybe you could go up there and kind of scope it out and see which rock you'd be interested.
Sure.
And send us a picture. And honestly, my guess would be he doesn't even have to come back. We could just
Yeah.
approve it.
Oh, cool.
We could approve it at our next meeting.
Yeah.
If you just send us the same pictures with kind of how you superimposed it on the rock.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
Okay.
Where's that fountain? That was so cool looking.
That's actually a dog trough.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
Yeah, I
Where is
carved
it?
the dog trough for my dogs.
For your dog?
Because I seen the old
That's a
ones that
lucky
they have in
dog.
Rockport. There's a couple of old ones.
Yeah.
There's one at the museum across from Pigeon Cove Pigeon Cove
Oh, yeah.
clock that the
Yeah.
town hasn't paid the electrical bill on. I don't know why that hasn't been working in 2 years.
Checks in the mail.
Oh, okay. But anyway, there's one out there, and there's another one I saw, and I was
Yeah,
like,
the
when I
town
saw
doesn't
it, I
own
was
that.
like, I was amazed by the craftsmanship, and I'm like, I have to make one, so I made a smaller version.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Is that the type of work that you do for work? Like
I'm a stonemason.
compasses and-
I
yeah.
mainly make my living doing masonry stuff. I do
Really?
carvings mostly for my own enjoyment.
Yeah, the carvings are beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, really, really cool.
It's not cost effective though. You can't.
Yeah.
I put so many hours into a carving, you never
Yeah.
get the money.
Well, I
for
saw
it.
you said it would take about 60 hours
Yeah.
to do this.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a labor of love.
Yeah, but I think it's a beautiful idea, and I think it would be really cool. I think we just have to find the right spot.
Yeah.
But
Definitely.
Yeah, thank you so much for.
No, thank you.
Thank you,
I
David.
love
What a
these
great
kind of ideas that just
contribution.
make.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll
interesting
just
things.
I'll research it and I'll just drop it off at Mitchell's office.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
And we're all good to
Yeah.
go.
So I'll
You need
make-
the motion?
Oh, yeah.
No, we should probably do the motion at our next meeting when we have this location,
Okay.
because this has a location on it.
Oh, okay.
But that's great. Thank you,
Yes,
David.
you just have to
Thank
drop
you.
the picture off.
Thanks so
Okay, I
much
appreciate
for
it.
that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
And then,
David.
once it's done, I think we'd love to come and
Yeah,
have
we'll
like
come
a
see
little
it.
ribbon cutting
Oh,
and check it.
that'd be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you
Great.
so much.
Thank you.
Nice
Thanks
to meet
so
you.
much.
Yeah.
Great. Tony, do you want to do the gala? Sure. Great. I love stuff like that. It's
I
super
do
cool.
too, yeah.
Nice idea.
I know.
So I'm Tony Beadle from Rockport Music. I live at 81 South Street, but I'm speaking on behalf of Rockport Music and the Shlinlu Performance Center. So on August 3rd, we have our annual gala, and you'd have to go back 2 years to the blueprint that I want to tell you about tonight, because last year our gala, due to the fact that Millbrook Meadow was under reconstruction, we held it on the premises of Rockport Art Association. And but we're going back to the Meadow this year, and it's essentially the same. Is that we'll have a concert. Probably today we discussed starting earlier, maybe 5 or 5:30, so about a 60 or 70-minute concert. Then everybody goes out of the hall and just goes down to Millbrook Meadow, where we've erected a tent for a dinner, a reception and a dinner for hopefully about 300 people. And this is a number we've done before. In terms of disturbing with sound or anything like that is the fact we have we bring along an amplifier because we have a small speech and a toast. But there's no live music throughout the evening. It's just the dinner. And I take that back. There could be live music. Sometimes we have a student ensemble playing as people are coming in the Meadow. And we've had, and sometimes in other years, we haven't decided on this, we've had a small ensembles either from the schools or the North Shore, the Northeast Youth Orchestra on people's porches along the way from the hall to Millbrook. So that in essence is the we use the Peg Leg parking lot in its entirety, where the caterer gets set up, and portable restrooms, and we've used a portable generator. I understand there's electricity now in Millbrook Meadow, so it might be a different story there. So other than that, that's the lay of the land.
Great.
What time does it conclude?
Well, I'm going to guess it would be, the event itself would probably wrap up about 9:30, and then there would be some immediate cleanup, but then the next day is when the tent and the stuff gets moved out.
Right. So nothing's really changed?
No,
Okay.
Same.
no.
Good.
And if there's something substantial or whatever, we would come back.
Yeah.
Great.
No,
Is
that's
there-
great.
Is there a motion?
I believe I have, no.
I move that the Board of Selectmen approve Rockport Music's use of Millbrook Meadow on Saturday, August 3rd, 2019, for its annual gala.
Second?
Motion has been made and seconded. Any questions from the board?
No.
No. Yep.
Great.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank
All
you very
set.
much.
Thank you, Tony.
Thanks much. Nice to see you.
Same here, guys.
Thanks for everything that Rockport Music does for the town.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's
You-
great.
I wouldn't want your job, so thank you guys too.
Well, we're glutton for punishment here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
Tony.
Okay, yeah, you Millbrook Meadow, and then is anyone here for anything else specific besides Millbrook Meadow? No? Okay, great. Welcome, ladies. Nice to see you. Spring, right?
We're getting there.
You guys being here means it's spring.
I hope
Oh.
so.
Madam Chair, there was an additional item that we have on the table for you, playground equipment related to a gift, and there's also a whale statue to be
Okay.
accepted, sculpture, excuse me, to be accepted this evening, so that the motion would need to be modified to
Oh,
add in the
great.
sculpture.
Can you, oh, super
It's
cool.
beautiful.
Yeah, I saw the pictures. Who
Wow.
sent the pictures? Somebody sent pictures a few weeks ago.
Barbara. I believe.
Barbara
did,
Sparks
yep.
sent us
Sent
pictures,
them,
yeah.
That's gorgeous.
Denise, do you want to make the motion to add number 3, the whale sculpture? We'll make the motion and then discuss it.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
Judy Lemon.
I move that the board gratefully accept the following donations. $20,000 from the Millbrook Meadow Conservancy to be used for the Millbrook Meadow Restoration Project as specified in the letter of purpose and gift acceptance form from the Millbrook Meadow Committee. And 2, a donation of play equipment valued at $70,000 from the Millbrook Meadow Conservancy to be installed at Millbrook Meadow as specified in the letter of purpose from the Millbrook Meadow Committee. And 3, the sculpture of Millie the Whale to also be installed at Millbrook Meadow.
Great.
Seconded.
Motion has been made and seconded. Welcome.
Welcome.
Nice
Hi.
to see you.
Nice
A
to see you,
question?
Can that motion be amended to say is a value to be determined and for a gift, acceptance of gift form to be supplied by?
Yes, the gift form needs to come in when you all get that in.
Sure, I think we're okay as it's written. We'll just process that administratively. I think we're
Yes,
fine.
but I think there should be a record that.
The value of the contract with the sculptor was about $25,000.
Okay.
So I think if you
That's
use
fine.
that round number,
Sure.
that that
That's
would be
fine.
sufficient.
That's fine. I think we're good on the motion. Yeah.
Yes.
Great. That's the, okay, great. Go ahead.
Hi, so for the record, Shannon Mason, 14 Granite Street,
like that.
Vice Chair of the Millbrook Meadow Committee. Good evening. So we're here with kind of some ongoing gifts in order to move our long project towards completion. It feels like we're finally kind of turning the springtime corner on this. So the $20,000 gift is mainly to take over some additional contracting with Malone and McBroom, and some change orders for the front Beach Street entrance. We kind of looked at kind of reevaluating how that, given the proposed area for installation of the well would be kind of right near that entrance, so people passing by would be able to see it and be a point of interest, and kind of right by that retaining wall that's been reconstructed for the end of the culvert there. And then, so those two kind of things went together, so we are glad to add the whale tonight, so thank you. The other is the playground equipment that will go pretty much by the same area where it had been, but just maybe shifted out just a little bit. But the climbing structure, I think Laura has kindly given you guys pictures of it, climbing structure, and then the swing set.
Cool.
So kind of to get all of the site prep and everything in order, if we can approve, accept all those tonight, it's going to be really great to.
Great.
to
Can
get
I
the-
ask a question about the playground?
Of course.
Because I think, Barbara, someone shared them to some like parent Facebook groups that I'm on. I think it was kind of fundraising. And a few people were like, yikes, like in today's day and age, like our metal slides, like,
Well, for one thing, metal slides, this one is aluminum, so it's not going to be as hot as
Okay.
some. stainless steel, I'm sorry.
Okay.
And, but the slide that was there was a
Okay.
steel slide.
Okay.
And it lasts much longer.
Okay, so that's
than
the
a-
that's
than
the
a
reason.
plastic.
Okay, great. Because I know, and then someone's answer was, when we were young, we just got used to it, so that's what kids can do. And I was like, I think there's probably more to the answer than
Well,
that.
the other answer is you're thinking of it in terms of a bright sunny space. It's over tucked by the trees.
By the trees.
Yeah.
Got it.
By Frog Pond,
Okay.
kind of where it was.
Right.
So it's not going to be in direct sunlight
Right.
all the time.
And I was kind of assuring people that it's a brand new structure. It's not like an old donated
No,
structure, so
no.
it's built for today to last a long time.
Correct.
Perfect.
Yes.
Great. It looks really cool. It looks
Great. That would be
similar.
beautiful.
I mean, it looks like a little bit smaller version of what's at the type of structure that's at the school that I know the
Correct.
kids absolutely love. So I think it's going to be
And the
awesome.
color scheme, I think, fits with the meadow
Yeah.
quite appropriately. And
Oh, I agree.
I think there were a lot of people, younger parents, who were worried with the renovation that there wouldn't be a playground.
anything. Yeah.
And so I think people are really excited.
Well, I think the other thing to note is that we've kept an eye towards interaction with the entire environment and children, which is why, the realignment of the brook and the accessibility of the brook in terms of safety. Kids are naturally interested in water features and things, so we've tried to make things much safer, much more approachable. The dogwood thicket is going to be remain, and that's also always been a real a play interest for kids to kind of wander in through and have a fort system in there and that kind
Yeah.
of thing. So I think that the whole environment with it being more opened up and accessible is going to provide some great opportunity for interaction with the natural environment too, in addition to a more structured
Yeah.
play
Yeah.
equipment.
Yeah. Really
So.
cool. It's so exciting to see how
You
far.
guys have done an
Yeah.
amazing
It's just
job.
amazing. It's amazing.
great.
Yeah. And the whale sculpture is just like
Beautiful.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was completed by Thomas Berger, who's an artist in Kittery, Maine, and that was a large piece of granite, Rockport granite that came out of Johnson's quarry. So he brought a truck down, they hoisted it on, he took it back and went to work on it over this winter. It's all been privately donated, private funds raised for its purchase and installation.
That's
So-
going to be such a draw into the
Oh, yeah,
park for people.
absolutely. Yeah,
It will be, and I think
absolutely.
it's one of the largest granite sculpture installations on the North Shore in quite some time,
wow.
too. So I think,
That would be great.
outside of, the certain things along the boardwalk in
Yeah.
Gloucester, I think,
Yeah, yeah.
We look
Rockport will
forward
now
to
have
seeing it.
its too.
Yep.
Great.
When
Thank
is-
you.
When is when is she coming?
In May. Maybe,
Oh.
that's the, we're trying to get the site prep done.
Yeah.
The contractor comes back at the beginning of April, and they're planning to be there for about 3 weeks. And then,
Wow.
the-
So it's soil, depends on the moisture in the soil.
Right,
and
right.
Yeah. Hope it's not a rainy April, right?
Right.
grading
Yeah.
and
right.
all that.
Great.
So it could be pretty soon
Yep.
Great.
for both of them. The
Yeah.
playground equipment, the
And
guy
the
wants
whale.
to come just as soon as we
Yeah.
can get the area stabilized and graded.
I think the equipment was due to be delivered, back to the manufacturer and in holding sometime middle of this month, if it's not there already.
It's there already.
It's there already.
Great.
Great. I love the green. I
you.
love how the playground equipment
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
I love the colors in it.
Yeah.
It's
Very
really cool.
nice.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
guys
you.
so
Thank
much.
you.
Always
Thank
so
you very
nice
much.
to- Any
Get your
further-
phone. Your
They
phone.
did vote. They voted first.
We all voted.
No, we haven't voted yet. Any further comment on
Nope.
this?
Nope.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
See you in the meadow soon.
Our rubber boots.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okey doke. Okay. Now we'll just kind of run through from the
Yeah.
beginning. Appointment of Erin O'Connell as an associate member of the Zoning Board of Appeals.
I move that the board appoint Erin O'Connell as associate member of the Zoning Board of Appeals for a term to expire on June 30th, 2020.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any
Nice
further
try.
discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next, we have approve and sign the town meeting warrant.
I move that the
Did we
board
do that?
approve and sign the April 27th, 2019 annual town meeting warrant.
Second.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in do you want to say
No,
anything?
no.
Well, you went through it all last week, right?
I did, just what,
Yeah.
we shaved several articles out, basically,
yeah.
so
You wanna
it's
just-
much shorter.
Great,
Okay.
want to just
So
say
just-
what you shaved out? I don't-
Sure, so, we consolidated, the charity articles.
Oh, right.
Into
Yep.
one, we
Right.
consolidated the trust and stabilization funds into one.
Yeah.
Great.
And we no longer need to do, unless we're going to change the amounts on the revolving accounts. So those are, that article has been removed. And we adjusted one from, excuse me, FY '20 up to FY '19, the borrowing for the water treatment plant, so they can get started on that process sooner. So we go through Article J
Okay.
now, which is a
Great.
significant reduction.
Yeah,
Great.
good.
Perfect. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed nay. Motion carries. Next, we have approval of reading of the Declaration of Independence on July 4th.
Always one of my favorites. I move that the Board of Selectmen grant permission to the Rockport Rotary Club to hold the annual reading of the Declaration of Independence on Dock Square on July 4th, 2019 at 10 a.m.
Seconded.
Motion has been, we're getting really wild tonight. Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed nay. Motion carries. Next, we have seasonal alcohol license renewals. Oh, didn't we have I thought we had an alcohol license tonight no?
No, we had the entertainment one.
That was
That
it?
was it for tonight.
For Top Dog, no?
The Top Dog one was acted on at the meeting at
Last
the community house.
Oh,
So it's just-
that's
it's
the
just-
one I
it's just
wasn't at the
signing the-
meeting.
yes,
That's
it's
right.
just
I'm
signing the
sorry. I was
documentation
confused because I saw it on the agenda, but I wasn't at that meeting. That's right. Sorry. Okay. Seasonal alcohol license renewals.
I move that the board approve and sign seasonal alcohol renewal licenses for Ellen's Coffee Shop, Inc. of 1 T Wharf and the Blue Lobster Grill of 15 Dock Square to expire on January 15th, 2020.
Great. Motion has been made.
Second.
And seconded. And I want to make sure I have it right here. So it's Ellen's
And
Blue Lobster
Blue
Grill.
Lobster.
Perfect.
Yep.
Is it a question?
Isn't Ellen's closed?
I think it's for
It's for sale.
It's for sale, but
it's going to open
Yeah.
until they sell
Yep.
it, I think.
all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Great. Next, we have Emergency Services Day on May 19th, 2019.
I move that the board grant permission to the Rockport Ambulance Department to hold their annual Emergency Service Day on Sunday, May 19th, 2019, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. on T Wharf.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Always a nice day.
Always.
Any further discussion? Nope. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. And Rockport Music Gala we did. Earth Day, the Hump Day sign was removed for this evening. Earth Day traffic and parking requests.
I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the request of the conservation agent to allow Broadway to be one-way from Five Corners to Cleve Street and to allow no parking on the left side of T Wharf from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturday, April 27th, 2019.
Seconded.
So isn't that where all the fishermen park?
No, I think it's Broadway, right?
No, on the left side of T Wharf.
Oh.
I mean,
Yeah,
so we have
yeah,
motif
yeah.
number one day, we have this.
Yeah,
I'm just worried about,
Yeah,
Maybe
I
put
think.
on the right symbol.
I'm sorry, I didn't notice. I
Sure.
thought that Broadway. I think the Broadway part is fine, but I don't think we can do T Wharf on
Okay,
another.
that's
day.
certainly, we
Yeah.
can certainly
People-
convey that,
Yeah.
that that's
I
not an
agree.
option.
Yeah.
It's also just a few weeks before motif number one day.
Right.
Certainly,
yeah.
so if that, we can just
That's
strike
really
that
a
from the
hardship,
motion. in the
Yeah.
especially
form
on
of
a Saturday. for
T
them.
Wharf
Yeah,
cannot be
yeah. Like
accommodated.
it's a really important Saturday too, 'cause it's
Right.
before the
Yep.
summer.
Yeah.
Great. So,
Do I need to amend it? Or just,
So you just.
Strike it?
You just strike,
Yeah.
we'll move to, the board will just strike that.
perfect.
Okay.
Okay. Any further questions? You'll let them
No.
know, Mitch. Great. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Good catch. I didn't, for some reason, I just saw
Yeah.
read the
I saw
Broadway
the other
part.
one, too.
Yeah. Next, we have a Rockport Exchange event permission. I actually had what change here too. Rockport Exchange event permissions for Motif Number 1 Day, Farmers Market, and Harvest Fest.
I move that the board approve the Rockport Exchange request to hold Motif Number 1 Day on Saturday, May 18th from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. with cleanup from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. and allow the closure of the road between the Blue Lobster Grill restaurant and Dock Square Island beginning at 8 a.m. on Friday, May 17th until the end of the festival. Closure of T Wharf to all traffic other than commercial fishermen and festival vendors on Saturday, May 18th. Closure of Lower Mount Pleasant Street between Broadway and High Street, and reserve the use of the annex parking lot for vendor and musician parking with a valid pass issued by the police department.
Seconded.
Motion has been made and seconded. Further comments? So the only kind of challenge, I think this whole plan has worked really well. The only challenge I've seen is closing the Mount Pleasant Street portion in front of like the red
Slaves and-
skiff.
yeah.
Because like I live in the South End, and so when you come down to like go to the event, and people commented this to me at the Makers Festival too. Like people in my neighborhood didn't know about the Makers Festival. So you get to High Street and you're immediately made to take a left, and then you can't take a right on School Street because it's a one-way. So then you have to go up Broadway Ave, and then you're kind of shot out like halfway up Broadway past the fire station. And at that point, you're kind of not downtown anymore. Like you're out of the event. So like several people commented to me, they were like, it feels like to the south end that downtown is blocked off, not. So I didn't know if it was worth just having a conversation about that part with the police. Like in the past, they've put a policeman there anyway.
Mhm.
So I think Harvest Fest, I don't know, I was wondering if that part might use some more conversation.
I mean, I know that's a really important area for,
Put their things, yeah.
for their, you know, tents and the displays.
That's where they put, yeah. I mean, unless maybe
I think makers may have been a particular issue. I think the notice was not what it could have
Yeah.
been, and it was underutilized, so it appeared like it was closed for
Just
no
empty.
reason. That was part of a
yeah, so
bigger
maybe
issue.
we keep it closed for Motif, because I know they use it a lot for
Yeah. Right.
Motif and maybe Harvest, but then no more. Do you know what
Yes,
I mean?
and I've told Makers Fest that they have to revisit that anyway, so
Okay.
I don't
So
expect
I
we'll
think
see
that
that
makes
back
sense.
again.
That's
Because
okay.
they do totally use it.
Yeah.
It's just, you know,
Right.
so I was
And
wondering if
now
there's
it's
another.
become more regular and
Yeah, and maybe I should have them put up a sign when you get there
Yeah.
saying.
our second sign.
Right, yeah, we can put
Yeah,
the second
saying,
sign
like,
there.
Hopefully
that
our
this is-
second
so
sign
people
will be
know,
here.
You know what I mean? Like
What's
Motif
going on
number
down
one
there,
day,
so we
fine
know.
park. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Something so
Yeah.
that people coming
Yeah.
there don't just think that it's blocked off.
Right.
Right.
Sure, we can work out some signage.
Okay, cool. That sounds good. All right. Any other comments?
Nope.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Sorry. Hold on a second. And next we have, I think that's it, right?
Oh,
No?
nope, there's
No.
another one. I move that the selectmen approve Rockport Exchange request to hold the Rockport Farmers Market
Oh,
on
sorry.
successive Saturdays from June 22nd to October 19th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. in Harvey Park, and allow the use of 4 parking spaces in front of Harvey Park on Mount Pleasant Street for temporary 15-minute market parking for patrons to make quick stops at the market, and the use of the annex parking lot for vendor parking with a valid pass issued by the police department.
Second?
Motion has been made and seconded. This is great. This seems to
Yeah.
work for them,
Yeah,
right? I
that
mean, I
worked
think we
great.
want to do whatever helps
Yep.
them.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. Great. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
I move that the board approve Rockport Exchange's request to hold Harvest Fest on Saturday, October 19th, from 8 a.m., excuse me, to 5 p.m., with cleanup from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., and allow the closure of the road between the Blue Lobster Grill restaurant and Dock Square Island on beginning at 8 a.m. on Friday, October 18th, until the end of the festival. Closure of T Wharf to all traffic other than commercial fishermen and festival vendors on Friday, October 18th, and Saturday, October 19th. the closure of Lower Mount Pleasant Street between Broadway and High Street, and reserve the use of the annex parking lot for festival vendors and performers with a valid pass issued by the police department.
Second.
Great. Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? No.
Just that the fishermen be notified,
Yeah,
of course.
that'd be great.
You know, that has been
Great.
an issue, but not in recent years.
Yep. And it would be great. Will she send something out now
So-
announcing both?
Yes, exactly.
Perfect.
It'll be now and then again.
Great.
Like a couple of weeks before or something, that'd be great.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, aye, excuse me, sorry. Opposed, nay. Motion
Nay.
carries.
Nice.
No,
No.
right?
Yes.
Okay. That's it?
That's it.
Wow, goodness. Mitch, any unanticipated business or announcements?
I think just one item on MBTA, just as an FYI.
Yeah.
I did have a productive discussion with Bill Ray, the name that was brought up, about something that they've been working on, I guess, for 10 years in town, replacing the creosote-soaked wood railroad ties with
Oh.
concrete ties.
Oh,
So they are doing that.
Great.
They're basically going to start from Piggery Crossing inward to install those. So we've been working with them to stage the 5,000-plus ties that are coming up from a job in Somerville. So we're basically going to line the route by Piggery Crossing down to our firing range with all of these ties, and then they're going to methodically come and put those in. So just to put that out there, that's a fantastic change that
Yeah.
they've been waiting apparently for a decade plus to be able to do something with that, and now they'll be able to. So hopefully some positive news on that front.
Yeah, great.
Great.
And I think kind of the key, honestly, I think if they can connect us with someone good and
right,
helpful
just
at the
talk.
MBTA,
Yeah.
because like when I first started on the board and the plans got to 90%, the people that we worked with were great and cared about
Yeah.
Rockport. They
Yes.
cared about the whole train line, but then
Yeah.
those people like are long gone, you know, so it's just
Yeah,
kind of
we just need to
changing.
We seem to hit
reestablish some.
we seem to hit a dead end whenever we have the government affairs folks.
Yeah.
That seems
Yeah.
to dead end us every
Yeah.
time.
Right. And we're reasonable. Like what we want is totally
I'm not.
reasonable.
You are, but I'm not.
No, I mean what we want from
Yeah,
them is
yeah,
reasonable.
of
You know what I
course.
mean?
Yeah.
We're not asking for.
Yeah.
So anyway, and then we don't meet next week, right?
Correct.
But then we meet the week after.
Right.
Okay, great.
Can I just want to mention
Sure.
the Rights of Way meeting that I went to last night. Two of the members are here. Fran was also there. It was an excellent meeting. They brought together representatives from the Conservation Commission, the Open Space and Recreation, Cape Ann Trail Stewards. I'm sure I'm leaving people out, but it was 13
Wow.
different groups. So just kind of all of us, who have input and concerns about rights of way in Rockport. It was a really excellent meeting, so thank you for doing that.
Great.
Learned a lot.
Great. Tom, did you have a question?
I just wondered if you had done the liaison reports.
Oh, no, yeah, I don't. Oh, sorry, we skipped over
jumbled
them
everything
because,
around, so.
yeah, sorry. Anyone have any other liaison reports?
I didn't have any this week.
Yeah, I don't have any
First
this week
time.
either. Yeah. Okay, anything else? Okay, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded.
Seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thanks, Eileen.